Tonight, Robin Gill.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin with breaking news. Via Rail has now cancelled all commuter train service across Canada because of the ongoing blockades. CN Rail also shut down its network in eastern Canada. Protesters who joined Indigenous leaders opposed to a natural gas pipeline in BC have been causing major disruptions. The Prime Minister says he's hoping for a resolution as soon as possible.
Obviously, this is a situation we're following very closely, but obviously we're a country of the rule of law, and we need to make sure that those laws are followed.
The federal government says it's ready to meet with the elders, but as Abigail Bimman reports, the offer comes with a call to end the blockades.
Use the washrooms. This is our turf today.
Activists stage a sit-in at the BC Attorney General's office in Vancouver.
We are demanding that David Eby meet with us in person, and we will not leave until that happens.
One staff member seemed upset, her boss commenting from the BC legislature still shut down to the public due to protesters.
We've been able to accommodate different protests, but where the line is obviously anything in relation to the safety of my staff.
The BC government, along with Ottawa, have accepted a request to meet with hereditary chiefs opposed to the Coastal GasLink pipeline, but call for an end to the CN Rail blockade in northern BC.
I'm hopeful that it may help. It may help the situation.
In Ontario, Federal Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller offered to meet with the Mohawk community, but in an email asked them to remove the rail barricade as soon as possible, calling it a highly volatile situation, saying he's concerned about safety.
Colonial politicians like Mark Miller turning the situation around like as if we're the ones that are being violent, kicking our skin. You are lying. You're manipulating, you're turning the situation around, you're gaslighting us.
This BC Indigenous MLA says protests across the country aren't actually helping Indigenous people.
No, they are uninformed. They're only getting 1% of the story in terms of a small group of people, hereditary chiefs in one area of the pipeline. Nobody's talking about the 99% of the First Nation communities that extensively reviewed and investigated these projects for the benefit of their own communities.
Now it's time for Wet'suwet'en people to handle this issue by themselves.
As for whether the federal government may step in to get things moving,
the conversation is really ongoing.
But no answer from the Agriculture Minister, who says she knows farmers especially are impacted. Abigail Bimman, Global News, Ottawa.
The blockades are hurting the Canadian economy. Rail passengers can't go anywhere, and freight trains are sitting idle. Ottawa is giving Indigenous groups space to protest, but as Eric Sorensen reports, pressure is mounting from the business community to end the disruption.
At first, all eyes were on the blockades, small acts of defiance. But the impact now is mushrooming through the Canadian economy by the hour. Tens of thousands of rail passengers have been affected, mainly in the busy corridor from southern Ontario to Quebec. And what's coming now, a massive blow to freight transportation. Trucks being held up at ports on both coasts and rail cars sitting idle in an industry that moves more than $300 billion worth of goods per year, from manufacturing to oil products. Service stations could run low on gasoline, and propane deliveries are falling behind.
Nothing is moving right now, and parts of Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada is starting to feel that the inventories are getting lower.
The agriculture sector, coming off setbacks in trade and an earlier CN rail strike, could now see canola, wheat, and other grains stuck in elevators. Caught in the middle of an economic chain reaction, farmer Daryl Frensu.
If they can't get their elevators empty to take our grain that's on contract, the simple fact is we don't get paid. If we don't get paid, we can't pay our bills.
We hope that the different, groups involved will find a way to understand each other.
Agriculture Minister Marie-Claude Bibeau says in the spirit of reconciliation, Ottawa is trying to balance the concerns of Indigenous protesters with the growing economic impact. Today, Bibeau suggested Ottawa can't sit back indefinitely.
We have to give a little bit of time to the different parties to have a discussion and find a solution, but at a certain point we have to do something.
Hoping isn't enough. we need action on the part of the federal government.
This business leader says Canada could soon see layoffs at home and repercussions abroad.
If we're not seen as dependable suppliers, if we can't get our products to market, this means that companies and countries will start looking elsewhere.
One survey found slightly more Canadians oppose the protests than support them, though the opposition may grow as the economic impact is felt and pressure mounts on Ottawa to get Canadian goods and passengers back on track. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.